What is up guys, Niko here and welcome back to another video here on the channel. And for today, we're going to talk about the Sony FX3. Alright, first of all, before we start, I'd like to thank Solid Video Corporation for lending me the FX3 and the Sony G Master 16-35 f2.8 lens. Solid Video Corporation is the official distributor of professional Sony video equipment here in the Philippines. If you have, broadcasting needs or, all-in-one solutions for your events, then, check out Solid Video Corporation. I'll put the links down in the description. But having said that, this is in no way a sponsored video. All the things that I will mention here in this video is my own opinion. All right, so let's get into the video. The FX3 has always been linked to the A7S3, which I am using right now to record this video, because they share a lot of things in common. Now, maybe I'll start with the things that they share, then I'm going to move on later in the video to the things that are different from the two cameras. So number one, they have the exact same menu except for one item, which I'll talk about later. Number two is they share the same codecs, they share the same video specs. They both record up to 4K 120p and at 1080p at 240 frames per second. Both of them are 10-bit cameras from Sony. Both cameras have a flip screen. Both the A7S3 and the FX3 have the dual gain ISO, which, gives you more flexibility when you go higher up into the ISO range. You still can get that maximum dynamic range when shooting your videos. For S-Log3, that is 640 for the first native ISO, and for the second native ISO, that's 12,800 for both cameras. Although these two cameras are video centric, we don't have a setting for shutter angle, unlike other cameras who had it, like the GH5 from way back. So we still have to select the shutter speed and match it with the frame rate that you are using at that moment. And as much as everyone wants it, but I don't know how Sony will incorporate that, both of these cameras still doesn't have internal ND filters. So those are the things that these two cameras share. Now let's go to the things that are different. Number one, their body or form factor. The A7S3 looks like all the other A7 bodies of Sony. It has an EVF because this still falls under the photography line of the Sony Alpha line, whereas the Sony FX3 is under the cinema line, which confuses me because it looks more like the photography line, just chopped off the EVF on the top. The thing that they did to make it more look like the cinema line is the color of the body. The FX3 sports the cinema line's gray finish, just like the FX6 and the FX9, while the A7S3 is, the more common black of the A7 series. Now, one of the key differences is the buttons, the labels of the buttons, and its layout. As you can see on the FX3, you have things like zebras, shutter, peaking, iris instead of aperture, already labeled in the buttons of the FX3. While in the A7S3, you get the usual buttons from all the A7 series of Sony. Now, one thing that I like better on the FX3 is the deeper grip. At first, when I was looking at the pictures, I felt that it won't make a difference. I felt that it was just, thinner. But yeah, it's a deeper grip. Your fingers goes deeper into the camera body with the FX3's grip design. Also, one thing that threw me off, I'm still not sure what I like better, is the mode dial or the mode button. In the A7S III, you change modes with a dial on top, while on the FX3, you change modes by pressing the mode button. Another change in terms of layout and the buttons is the power button. The usual power switch of Sony cameras is usually found there, while the FX3's switch is found here, and the usual on and off or power switch is now being used as a zoom rocker, wherein you can control a power zoom lens or a clear image zoom if you want to use that. Now, something that they put on the FX3, since I guess because it's a cinema camera, is active cooling, or they really put some fans in this body design, as you can see here, where in the A7S III, I think they call it passive cooling. But personally, I haven't experienced any overheating issues with the A7S III, even though, you know, I'm using it while charging and the camera gets really, really hot. But I think, you know, just to make sure, if, you know, for people who are using this for really, really, really long times under, you know, hot conditions, they integrated a fan to make sure that this camera doesn't overheat. Now, the design difference of that EVF versus the FX3's, you know, no EVF is debatable if it's a pro or a con, because for me, honestly, I don't really use the EVF that much. Some do. And if you are always using a gimbal for your video work, I think the FX3 will make it more flexible to use your gimbal with a camera, especially if you move it, you know, front and back more. There's more flexibility to adjust the camera to the back. One thing to note, yes, the FX3 is shorter, but as you can see in the body design from the top view, the FX3 is thicker. Now, one of the main differences of the FX3 from the A7S III is the mounting threads. As you can see here, you've got mounting threads here, here, here on the side, both sides actually, which is designed also for this top handle. Now, you could put the top handle here and screw it on the mounting threads, and you've got an instant top handle for your FX3. And this enables you to use a top handle without a cage. Now, this top handle comes with an audio interface, which includes, you know, 2 mini XLRs and a 3.5 millimeter jack if you want to use those types of microphones. But even without this, you could still plug in a 3.5 millimeter jack microphone on to the body itself. For me, this top handle feels really, really good. I think I like this better in terms of balance compared to, you know, my current cage when I rig up the A7S III onto a cage. But one thing that I wanted to see was an option to remove this, because personally, I don't have an XLR microphone, so I am okay with a 3.5 millimeter jack here on the body. And as you can see, there is no way that you could mount a mic that usually goes on a hot shoe when you have this top handle attached. And with all of those being said, the big question is, which is the better camera? Well, of course, that is a very subjective question. But for me, with just 2 days of using the FX3, personally, I like the FX3 better than the A7S III. So if you're going to ask my opinion, if you are a video shooter, I would say go for the FX3. But that is if you haven't bought either of the cameras. Because there is another question that I am going to answer, which is, given that I already have the A7S III, would I sell that to buy the FX3? And the answer is no. If the FX3 was announced before I bought the A7S III, yes, I would have saved up more to get this camera instead. But now that I have the A7S III and I can't sell the A7S III at retail price, at the price that I bought it, the difference of what I need to save up more to get the FX3 is now bigger. So I don't think it's that practical anymore to switch over to this. I mean, capability-wise, when it comes to taking the video, they're pretty much the same camera inside. Although I enjoyed the functions of, the FX3, I think I could, work around those things. I already have a cage and I don't really have a problem using the A7S III on my gimbal. I could still balance it, perfectly. So yeah, even though I like this very, very much, I'd have to pass on selling my A7S III and getting the FX3. But I'd like to know what you think about, this dilemma. If you are in my position, would you sell your A7S III to get the FX3? Or maybe you even find the A7S III better than the FX3. Let me know, write your comments down below. So that is it for today's quick comparison video of the A7S III and the FX3. I hope you learned something. I hope you picked up something that is useful. And if you like this video, I'd highly appreciate if you'd hit that like button. Also, if you like these types of content and you aren't subscribed yet, please subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button and the bell notification icon so you'll get notified when I upload new videos. Also, like me on Facebook, follow me on Instagram, and I'll see you in the next video. See ya!